We've driven down 11 hours. After our first supercharger trip, we had so many errors pop up on the car. Autopilot aborted at about 90 on the Autobahn. We came into this car park, and so over there where those cars are, the power steering, as we entered that, completely shut off, and it got so heavy, like really heavy. So we've got traction control is disabled, regenerative braking is disabled, stability control is disabled, steering assist reduced, steering may require increased effort. It was completely turned off. Right, let me show you then. So I'm just going to try and go. Come on, dog. I'm going to go forward a bit. It works.
Of course it works.
But it didn't.
No.
We're going to see you in Geneva.
Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know most of the story. You'll probably know even exactly what went down. But for those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, go head over and check it out. But here's the full rundown of what happened on my EU road trip from hell.
Safety restraint. What the fuck?
Okay, hell was probably a bit of an exaggeration, but the trip didn't go as planned. We started our journey off here in the UK and headed to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, which was absolutely fine. We then drove down to Chamonix, France, or at least we started to drive down to Chamonix, France. All of a sudden, my autopilot turned off. Now, I was on autopilot for hours and hours before this. Adam was asleep in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden, autopilot turned off, full self-drive turned off, and I got a list of about 10 errors. Now, these 10 errors all had to do with electronic stuff. So, no ABS, no traction control, no stability control, no front radar, no cruise control, no nothing. And we got this noise happening every 5 seconds. Like, imagine that. Every single 5 seconds driving on a road trip, no matter how loud you put your music, this is the noise that keeps on happening. So I decided to pull over and call Tesla. It only took a few seconds to get through to Tesla, which was really, really good. But the advice was pretty bog standard, and it was stuff we'd already done. It was do a hard reset of the screen of the car, which obviously I've done. They said turn off the car, turn it back on again, which I did. And then they said get out the car and leave it for 10 minutes and then get back in, which is what we did. And that worked for maybe 10 seconds, and then all of a sudden, boom,
No. No, it's all starting again. Look at that.
Now, the Tesla people had told me that the car was completely fine to drive, except these errors are occurring, and do make sure you know that all of these things are off. So maybe don't go skidding, don't go doing the normal speed that you would normally do. When we got down to Chamonix, though, things got really bad really quick. But we were also super fortunate. You see, when I turned the car back on the last time, it did tell me that power steering wasn't available. But weirdly, as soon as I started driving, the power steering was working. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's just warning me about something that it's not sure about. Because the guy on the phone said it seems to be a communications error with something in the car. So I was like, okay, power steering is still on. It's just telling the car that it's not, so it's a little bit confused. And then as we got to the car park, I reached out, I pressed the button, the thing lifted up, and I started driving forward, and I noticed my power steering had completely gone. This obviously is massively alarming because Teslas are very, very heavy cars, and of course, when the power steering goes on a heavy car, it's really hard to turn. It's so hard to turn that I had to do maybe a 20-point turn just to get it into a parking space because it was insanely heavy. I called up Tesla UK, who then patched me through to like Tesla emergency services, and then I was speaking to someone in English, and this all happened absolutely fine. No quarrels. They said, where are you? We told them where we were, and we waited for an hour and a half. We then tried to get the car out of the car parking space, and all of a sudden, all of the errors turned back on, but oddly, power steering turned back on.
It works.
So I was able to actually get out of my car parking space really, really easily, and that worked really well. We then got up to the bed of the truck, onto the truck, and goodbye Tesla. Now at this point I'd already spoken to Tesla services on the phone, and they'd already offered me a courtesy car that day. Now this was a Saturday evening, so this was pretty impressive, and they said we'll get you one there tonight and you can have it until the car's fixed. And I said to them, well, how long will this actually take? They said they don't know, could take a day, could take a week. But we'll let you know. And I said, well, if it's going to take only 2 days or something, don't bother wasting money getting me a courtesy car because we're just going to stay here in Chamonix, France and go skiing anyway. And they were like, cool, that's fine. We won't do that. where do you want your car to go to? The closest service centre, so obviously we just need to taxi it to the closest service centre, which was Geneva, which was en route, which was great. We said, yeah, okay, that's perfect. Boom, the car was taken away, sat back, relaxed. 2 days then goes by, and it's an absolutely great time in Chamonix. We went skiing, we had loads of fun, didn't worry about the car at all. I then called up to check about how it was going, and I was told, yep, the car will be ready to pick up tomorrow, which is great. And I was like, okay, that's perfect. We'll pick up the car from Geneva and carry on our trip. But then I look at the location of the car on the app, and it's actually in Lyon, which is 2 hours west, I think, of Geneva, and in France, not in Switzerland, which was really strange. So I spoke to them and I said, why is this? Apparently it couldn't go to Geneva because it couldn't go over the border, so they had to take it to France. But the problem is that was really quite far away. That's 2 hours extra out of our journey, which would have been a 4-hour journey for us, if that makes sense. We would have gone to Geneva, all the way to Lyon, and then all the way back to Geneva, which would have been about 4 hours, probably more with traffic and stuff. So I said, that's quite a pain for us because we need to get up to Luxembourg for the next day of our trip because that's where our hotels are booked. So they said, okay, let's get you a rental car and you can come over to Lyon and pick it up and then drop the rental car off and they'll deliver the rental car back and you can drive all the way up. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but that's going to cost quite a lot of money because it's going to be a rental car delivered to us. Someone else is going to... So I said, can you just flatbed it back to us? And at this point, they kind of went, I'm not sure. But after a bit of discussion, I said to them, look, we really need to continue our journey tomorrow, and going the 4-hour extra to Lyon to get the fixed car is really going to completely destroy our timelines. So instead they said, you know what, we're going to put the car back on a truck and we're going to deliver it straight to you. It will leave, I think they said it will leave tomorrow morning at something like 9 a.m. It'll be with you at 11 a.m. The next morning I wake up to a phone call from a French dude and he says, hi, it's like 8:30 at this point. I'm leaving now, the car will be with you by 11. Perfect. So we're going to check out, we're going to get our car, and then we're going to zoom all the way up. We wait. We keep waiting, and it gets to about 12:30, something like that. And I'm like, okay, something's up. This is going weird. And at this point, it all kind of broke down. Before this point, everything had been great. The car had been taken away. I'd been offered a courtesy car. I didn't need it, so I declined it. No point wasting. You know, Tesla were like, any transportation you take, send us the receipts, we'll pay for it. All of this, perfect. I didn't use any transport because I didn't need to go anywhere, so I had nothing to spend, had nothing to do with them, no problems. And I honestly think that's probably why they said, yeah, sure, we'll just put it on a truck and send it back to you, considering they'd given me a plethora of options that cost them a lot of money, and I'd said I don't need any of them, so they were probably like, look, we've saved money there, let's just bed it back to him and get it back. So the car leaves, and it does leave at 8:30, 9 a.m. That morning. It did leave because I saw it on my phone. I saw the tracker. As soon as the car leaves, the tracker kind of just updates it a second, but then as it's on the bed of the truck, it never updates. The car just won't update for some reason. I guess because it's not really on, it doesn't update as if it was driving. So I checked the car, and it still said it was in Lyon. And I was like, this is strange. It should be... Well, I mean, it should have been here an hour ago. So I call up Tesla, and this is when the troubles appear. I call France, who send me to the UK one. The UK service centre says that they have no recollection of my car being picked up. There's nothing on the system because the EU and the UK systems are different.
The issue is obviously because it's been taken care of by like the French, the roadside team.
Yeah.
They may very well use a different system to us. So when I'm putting your VIN details into my system, there's nothing coming up for it, but that's not to say obviously it's not in hand and being dealt with. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to speak to, we've got a contact for the roadside team over here.
This is the French number that I've called, and I was put through to the UK. So yeah. To
be honest, not that should be happening, but I have come across that before, and I don't know if it's just because obviously they clocked that you're English speaking and just assume that obviously you need to speak to us.
Right.
I can only assume that's what's happening.
And you can see this on my call logs, how like many times I had to call in, 2, 3, 4 hours. I was calling Lowe's to try and find out, yo, what the hell's going on? Where's my car? We need to go. And it wasn't until about 3, 4 o'clock that I found out, after literally bouncing around call centers, being on the phone for an hour on hold and all this kind of stuff, I found out that apparently my car was stuck on the back of a truck on the motorway, which had broken down from an oil leak. Yeah, and this oil leak happened hours and hours ago. And I'd been stressing out at this point because, you know, some of Tesla said, no, your car's not with us. We haven't seen it. Others were like, yeah, it was at the service center yesterday, but it went this morning. And then no one knew where it was. I called up Tesla and they were actively trying to find it. And I was like, well, call the tow truck company, which they eventually did. But even the tow truck company had no intentions of telling Tesla or me that the car was stuck on the back of a bed. Yeah, literally. I was sat in the hotel lobby for, I think we were sat for 8 hours waiting for the tow truck, thinking it was coming, and then eventually being told, oh no, it's been broken down for ages, we're waiting for a new tow truck. That was so infuriating because here's the biggest reason. We were told obviously it'd be there at 11 a.m. Perfect. If the tow truck company had called Tesla, or if Tesla had updated to find out what was going on, and they told me back at 11 o'clock, it would have been fine because we could have carried on and sorted out things for our day. But the problem was no one at Tesla was bothered to tell me. And when I reached out to them, it took hours and hours, and it took me hours of jumping between phone calls, trying to speak French. I had to give it to the receptionist, random people to speak French to the French service center. No one really was that bothered, and no one seemed to know where the car was or what was happening to it. And for me, in that situation right there, I was stuck in a foreign country with, like, no car. I basically had no money. The rest of my stuff was in the car, so, like, the cash and stuff was in the car. And we were just like, right, we're kind of screwed. So and it got to about 6 p.m. that night, and then I was like, you know what? We're not going anywhere. So it's now, we were meant to leave at 11 a.m. It's now 7-ish, 7 p.m. And I say, okay, look, we're going to have to stay here another night. Can you sort the accommodation for us? No. They weren't going to pay for accommodation. They were happy to pay for any kind of travel and transport, but accommodation, they said I would have to escalate the case to find out why.
Okay, so I will send it to I will escalate it to the service center.
And this wasn't me trying to get money back from the accommodation I'd already spent up in Luxembourg. I was just trying to get an accommodation for that night. So I ended up staying in the hotel another night, which was Grand Hotel des Alpes, which is roughly about 300 euros a night. We'd stayed there for 3 nights beforehand. That's where I booked. That's where I wanted to go. Luckily, they had the exact same room for one more night available, and I said, can I stay there? They said, yeah, that's fine. They gave us a better room rate, and I spoke to Tesla and I said, are you going to pay that bill? Because, you know, I should have had the car back at 11. No one knew where it was. I've been kind of panicking all day. If I'm being totally honest, I've been panicking all day about the car. And I was bricking it. I was absolutely bricking it. And they said, no, they're not going to cover it. So I know that you're watching the video, the people at Tesla, and I spoke to, I think, the lady, really, really nice lady, maybe the head of emergency calls or services at Tesla. I told you about the video, so I hope you're enjoying. I hope you enjoy the rest of the channel, everyone at Tesla.
Yeah, so so you're a YouTuber.
Yes,
so
yes.
What is the name of your channel so I can follow it?
Yeah, if you put Tesla driver, literally just Tesla driver into YouTube, it should be there. It should, and there's loads of videos. Hopefully you really enjoy them.
Okay, Mr. Ryan. So I will have a look.
Thank you. Please subscribe. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. So I really appreciate your time, okay? If you need something else, you always feel free to reach to us, okay?
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll speak soon.
Okay. Have a nice day, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But the emergency services, it was so good initially, but then the lack of communication between the UK and the French was embarrassingly bad. No one seemed to wanted to talk to each other. All they wanted to do was ping me across. But every time I got to a new call center, the person had no idea why I was calling. So yeah, it was a tough, stressful time. But anyway, that evening, all of a sudden I got a call to be told that my car was outside. Oh, brilliant. We walked out. There it was. It was snowing hard. The car was coming down off the bed of the truck. It actually skidded down the bed of the truck for a bit, which was quite cool. And we had the car that evening. And I bet most of you guys are asking, oh, what actually was wrong with the car? So apparently, this is what I've been told from Tesla, and I've not been able to get any more information, even though I keep asking. A PLN port needed replacing. I don't know what that is. I have not a clue. I guess it's something to do. He said it was something to do with the communication box, and it just wasn't communicating properly. I assume this port wasn't connecting and wasn't communicating the data it needed to. It's not totally over though, because the next morning we set off on our journey. It was a very snowy morning. And then the car froze. And I mean, it didn't freeze like it ever has done before, where it just freezes for a little bit. The whole thing froze.
Like completely frozen. We've just set off. It's, what's it, nearly 5 a.m. or 4 something a.m. Look at this is the weather.
And this is, yeah, and they said this is all sorted. What? Jesus. It was pitch black. All of the stuff on the car turned off. It was terrifying. But the car turned back on, and then after that, no problems. Literally nothing. And the drive home was great. Autopilot worked great. And the rest of the journey, the rest of the 1,000 miles or whatever we did, was absolutely fine. So it was a really weird issue. And it was something that technically I could have continued the drive with. I could have continued the whole road trip with. But it would have been a real pain in the ass. And it's something that I just didn't expect to happen. Anyway, that's all in the past now. The car's been fixed. And we're moving forward. I'm waiting back to hear about the accommodation and all that, and I'll update you on it, and I'll update you as well on the car, on how everything goes if we get any more issues. Let me know down below if you've had any issues at the service centers before, or whether they've been absolutely amazing for you. Like I said, the majority of the time it's been great, and half of this trip, half of this issue I guess actually, was so well done and so well sorted out, and it was actually the most simple part that wasn't. If the communication was there, everything else was like 10 out of 10. So if the communication was there, Tesla, it'd be amazing. Anyway, don't forget, if you want to buy a Tesla, use my referral down below. Until next time, thank you for watching. Drive safe.